Today we are here to really talk about, in the world of uncertainty, with the lack of transparency, lack of trust, it really affects loyalty. And in the topic of when it comes to working with hotels, what can the hotels do to really gain more loyalties from buyers like yourselves?
Look, I think, the market is definitely changing. We've seen that a lot, across the board, even in terms of, the relationship that we have with our customers. And I think the one thing that we've spoken about internally, which is so important to us, is about collaboration, is about partnership. And it's certainly what we're looking at with our hotels that we work with and the partnerships that we have. That really is that sort of honesty and transparency, and that we actually work together as a team to bring business into hotels. To me, that is probably the key as far as the way that we work with our hotel partners in the future.
When we talked a little bit earlier about experience, how important it is for hotels to actually deliver the real experience, because nowadays travelers are comparing hotels with, providers like Airbnb or Stays or One Fine Stay, for example. How can they be more in touch with the individual stayers?
I think really understanding what it is that people are now looking for and what they're looking to from that experience. I think when we're talking about specifically meetings and events, what's going to make that stay different? What do people need when they're on site for 4 or 5 nights for a meeting or an event or a conference? And really plugging into that and plugging into maybe the overall theme of the conference as well. So if it's a healthcare conference versus a creative conference versus a car company, really what it is, like talking to their audience, I think is a really important point. And I think that's what people get when they go to Airbnb. They can choose something that reflects what they're looking for. But I think hotels have that opportunity as well because they know the customers that are coming. They have probably more insight into the end delegates and what they're looking for, rather than somebody just picking up off on Airbnb.
And I think a segue into that, Elle, because we've, obviously disruption's been a big word that, people have been using for the last couple of years. But, interestingly, when you look at a company like Airbnb, it's been around for a long time in a different form, not as Airbnb, but these sort of companies have existed for a long period of time. I think where Airbnb were very, very clever was that the guys that founded that business, 2 of them were interior design graduates who essentially looked at it in a very different light in terms of what people were looking for in their stays. And so, it was about being part of a community, being part of a neighbourhood. It was about that sort of really sort of that home feeling. And, often people are away for 1 or 2 weeks at a time. Being in a hotel room for that long period of time is not necessarily a great option for a lot of people. So they were looking at something very differently. Now, some of the hotel brands, particularly the larger ones with Starwood and Marriott now with 31 brands, there are brands like, for example, Elements, which is all about that sort of bringing people together, making the lobbies and the sort of common areas much more about community. So they are trying to address it. But I think that's a really, valuable point, that Airbnb is not a new concept in market, but it is something that they've just taken to the next level. One Fine Stay is very much those very high-end apartments and housing, and it's a little bit different to Airbnb in that you do actually have someone that meets and greets you on site. They do have all their own hotel linen, they have all their own amenities and bathrooms, so it's a little bit like a hotel experience, but you are actually staying in someone's house in a neighbourhood. So I think that concept is also very, very clever, and I think it is just adding to, it's another market segment that is being addressed, and I think Accor was very smart in purchasing One Fine Stay for those customers that are looking for that experience. But there will also still continue to be a market for the traditional hotel stay. I mean, let's face it, we all love to get into a hotel and kick up our shoes and relax. And it is different market segments, but it's being able to understand those and address those accordingly.
I think ultimately, no matter if a customer's staying in One Fine Stay or Sofitel next time, all hotel groups should be able to really understand the customer overall. So it doesn't matter which hotel you go to within each chain. There is an element, I think, of expectation from people that you know enough about me to be able to create a different experience. There's nothing worse than if, as you say, you check in 14 nights into a hotel and you get 5 hangers. And then you have to. They know I'm here for 14 nights. It's not difficult. So it's my 15th, 16th stay. So I think that's where customers are really looking for something that's, as Caroline mentioned, you're going to feel part of a community and you're going to feel part of something because everybody wants to belong. And I think in such a disconnected world, hotels have such a massive opportunity to make people feel like they belong.
So ladies, in terms of creativity, there's a lot of expectation and pressure from participants, especially the newer generation, wanting CI events to be more creative. And obviously, I would imagine that you will always be looking for spaces and venues that can match their expectations. Are hotels creative in terms of their spaces? And if not, what else can they do to come across as being creative?
I think there are some hotels that, are open to being creative, but I do think the real opportunity is for hotels and for agencies such as ourselves to really come together as true partners and to create something unique, because every hotel has endless possibilities. They've got blank venues and they've got blank spaces, and what you can create within those venues is endless. And so I do think that the opportunity there is huge if it becomes a true partnership, and if the hotel is willing and able to look outside the normal traditional meeting room, pre-function space for morning tea, lunch and afternoon tea, how to create different experiences within that property. Because I think when you talk about the procurement managers or the people who are managing the budget, to them to be able to stay on site and not have to spend extra money in transferring, and there's less risk and there's no wet weather issues, there's a lot more possibility and a lot more opportunity within a hotel to create an experience where it's complete. And I think that we haven't really scratched the surface, because hotels have traditionally stayed within the parameters of the spaces that they've got and within a traditional meeting execution, whereas I do think that if we develop a partnership where we can create something unique every time, hotels will be able to create bespoke experiences time and time and time again.
There are definitely some brands, I think, that really have embraced some of those changes, like for example Mercure with their wellness program, which I've experienced myself, which is fabulous. And with their Novotel brand, they've started to introduce, for example, yoga mats or fit balls into the meeting rooms and whatever. So, and then of course, brands like QT that have tried to introduce a more sort of funky approach to their meetings, I think is also very good. I think that some brands, obviously some of the smaller global brands, will struggle a little bit because they haven't had that opportunity to diversify their brand, so they have one brand. So those hotels probably in some ways really need to embrace some of these changes and work with people like ourselves to help bring those spaces about and make them much more relevant to what people are looking for today.
Chris, I don't think, I mean, yes, we have the traditional day conference package, or the, I think in Australia it would be the 3-course, 4.5-hour drink sort of packages, and people have done that to death to a certain extent, and they want it a little bit more dynamic and more, let's go to a local area. And I think looking at some of the offerings within Australia and some parts of Asia, nowadays galleries and museums are doing very well because they are able to infuse the education component or knowledge component at a pre-dinner experience. But having said that, hotels, they are already built. The ballroom is of that size. Especially if they're in the city, they can't really expand further. What can they really do in terms of saying, guys, come on, can we work something out together creatively? What can they do?
Yeah. I was going to say, I think it needs to be, again, working with us, with partners like us, or even with, companies within the industry to bring in different aspects of furniture and whatever, and not just have your stock standard, tables and chairs and whatever that we see in every single hotel ballroom. I think they could definitely, very simply be a lot more creative with what they offer within a ballroom currently than the stock standard, furniture items that they have in there. I think I also love it when hotels bring in their neighbourhood. So they take around, we've been telling hotels for quite some time that, it's harder these days to get a customer to have a 3-day conference on site and all they do is spend that whole time in a hotel. They don't want to do that, particularly when you're bringing international visitors. They want to actually experience the destination. So I think hotels that are smart are ones that actually work collaboratively also with their surrounds, and potentially work with an off-site venue, say for example with a museum or some sort of art gallery or whatever may be around their area, and work with them collaboratively, because ultimately at the end of the day it is about the customer experience, and if they have a great experience across the board, it works well for everybody, and ultimately it works well for the hotel, because they walk away going, wow, that was amazing. They weren't just stuck in a hotel for 3 days and not experiencing the destination that they've come to. So I think we all need to take that approach and work much more as a full experience for the customer.